Bonjour! Episode 14 of the Emma Watson-a-thon, and today I'm going to watch Noah. Where to start with this one? For one, it has a very low score on IMDb. It's between a 5 and a 6, and honestly, that's never a good sign. I really hope it's one of those bad movies that I, for some weird reason, still enjoy. I'm preparing for the worst. The previous two films I watched were This Is the End and The Bling Ring, and honestly, this movie can't be any worse than those two. So then again, I said that nothing can be worse than The Bling Ring, and then we got This Is the End, so... Anyway, it stars Russell Crowe as Noah, I think. I'm not sure who Emma Watson is going to play. Honestly, there's a lot more people on the poster than I remember being in the story of Noah's Ark. At least I think this movie is going to be about that story, right? I probably should mention that I'm not really religious. I was raised pretty Catholic. I know the basics of the story of Noah's Ark, but you know, apart from Noah was supposed to collect a bunch of animals, a male and a female for every kind of animal in the world, and then God flooded the earth and he saved every species on the boat. And then there was like a dove that found an olive branch and a rainbow or something. Apart from that, I don't know much about this story. I don't know much about this movie either. I remember when it came out because Smosh did an interview with Emma Watson. Also, in that interview, they asked her how it was playing with Percy Jackson, and for that reason, I really thought Logan Lerman was going to be in this movie, but apparently he's not in this movie. It was just a question about the perks of being a wallflower. So yeah. So I don't really know what to expect. I mean, I like animals, so I hope there's at least some animals in this movie. To be honest, I can kind of see the makers of this movie taking so much liberties with the source material that they're just not going to include animals, but you know, I can hope, right? So yeah, another movie that I don't know much about, so I can't wait to find out what it's really about, and I will let you know after I've seen the film. I'm back! Noah tells a story of Noah's Ark, although it did take some liberties. After I watched the movie, I decided to read Genesis 6 through 9, which according to Google is the entirety of Noah's Ark. I read it first in the English Standard Version, because Google said that's the version I should read. I literally typed in what version of the Bible should I read, and it said English Standard Version. So that's what I did. And then after I read that, I noticed that I didn't understand some things, so I also read it in Dutch, because that's my native language, and yeah, that cleared up a bit. For those of you who don't know, Noah's Ark is a story that is set in the early days of the universe, and God sees the earth and humans, and he regrets ever creating humans because they're the root of all evil, so he decides to flood the earth, killing every living thing that is on it. But before he does that, he calls Noah, who is the only good person left, and he says, like, you should build an ark, which is basically a huge box where you put two versions, a male and a female, of every type of animal into that box, and then when I flood the earth, at least the animals can live on. And then Noah and his wife and their 3 sons and their sons' wives, they could also climb aboard the ark. So basically every bad person died except for Noah and his family, and like one animal of every species. I realized that Bible stories shouldn't be taken literally. This movie adapts it pretty literally, and because of that, there are some plot holes, like why couldn't God just kill every living thing and then create new life after his purification? But, you know, it's not really about that. I'm willing to let go of those plot holes because they were there in the original story. It stays faithful for the most part, but the story of Noah's Ark in the Bible is pretty short, and this movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, so obviously they had to add some things. For example, there's these giant stone creatures who are supposed to be these fallen angels that were banished from heaven because they decided to help humanity. They were present in the Bible, but they weren't important, and I don't get why they take on such a huge role in this movie. I thought they were a weird addition, but I guess they were there to make the movie a bit more of a fantasy epic, which it definitely is going for. There's also a big mean antagonist guy played by Ray Winstone, who I know from Indiana Jones 4. That's my daily Indiana Jones reference ticked off. And in my opinion, he was totally useless. He didn't have much of a character, and I didn't really see much reason for him to be in this movie, except for they probably wanted a huge battle and they needed someone to lead the opposing army or something. In my opinion, this story is interesting enough without an antagonist, so yeah, I think he could have just been left out of the movie altogether. Also, the sons' wives aren't that important in the Bible, they aren't even named. Also, there were at least 2 of them, presumably 3, but in the movie there's only one. She's called Ela, and she's played by Emma Watson. And she's actually a bit of the focus of the movie. Like, I know it's titled Noah and all, but Noah really isn't that important. None of the characters got much development or even characterization, but Ela and Shem were the most intriguing characters. They at least had something going for them. And Noah himself wasn't even that important. When he was being a bit of an insufferable guy. He was really unlikable throughout the entire movie, which normally, I mean, it can be cool to watch someone you don't really agree with, but especially because the main thing about Noah is that he's the last person on Earth who is worthy of God. He should be at least likable, right? I mean, he wants to kill a baby. It's just so weird because Noah is supposed to be the only good person, right? So that didn't really work for me. I didn't really like this movie. I thought it was a very weird take on a very well-known story. The highlight for me was definitely Emma Watson, even though she lacks characterization, but then again, everyone does. Her character was a bit flat, but at least she wasn't insufferable. And even though it was a bit of a weird movie, sometimes there's actually pretty creative things in there. I like the design of the fallen angels. There were some really cool montages and really beautiful shots in there. So obviously there was at least one person working on this who had some passion for it. Just for that alone, I can't really be really mad at this movie. And I also really like how this movie totally acknowledges evolution. Like, it's in there. Like, it's funny because it's a creationist movie, but it also says like evolution is a thing, so that's something. So all in all, very weird movie, not my thing at all, but I can respect some aspects about it, and that is why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Next episode, I'm going to watch Colonia, so do join me for that, and I will see you then. Goodbye.